Welcome to Monday Morning Critic Podcast. Here is Derek Thomas.
Welcome to episode 201 of Monday Morning Critic Podcast. My name is Derek Thomas. Thank you so much for listening. Today's guest is a composer. His name is Alex Wurman. Alex's filmography includes Between Two Ferns, the movie that came out in 2019, season 1 of The Newsroom. And let me tell you, when people ask me about shows, The Newsroom is maybe one of the first 5 out of my mouth as far as what people should be binging. It is so good. It's 3 seasons. Jeff Daniels, such a great show. It's so well done. Aaron Sorkin, just really well done. Alex's soundtrack is so good in that first season. Temple Grandin, Alex won an Emmy Award for that. The Nines with Ryan Reynolds. Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby. The absolutely iconic Anchorman with Will Ferrell. That would be Alex's second movie with Adam McKay, if I'm correct without looking. So we've talked about comedies on numerous occasions on this podcast, how they're very dependent upon people's sense of humor, which in many cases falls flat, and the movie gets penalized for that unfairly. But another overlooked part of movies is certainly scores and movie soundtracks that don't include vocals, right? Alex Wurman has been doing music composition for years. Inspirational music, motivational music, music that really drives home the movies which he composes. You know, we look at vocal music in movies, we know those songs. But, you know, there's many composers. But if you next time you're watching a movie, take time to listen to the music in the background. Take time to listen to a movie score. I will, when I'm done speaking here and I introduce you to the interview and Alex himself, I will leave you with a clip from The Newsroom. And that is not just a random clip. It's Alex's music playing in the background. And it's a powerful scene. And when you add Alex's music, it really takes it to another level. It really drives home that scene. And it's just so inspirational, just so motivational. And if anything with my podcast, I hope I've at least not inspired, it's over the top, but I hope I've steered you in the direction of noticing things you normally wouldn't have. Whether it's a scene, a love for cinema, something like music in the background of a scene, because it really is what makes these beautiful classics. Like, look at Anchorman. People don't come out of Anchorman talking about the score that was done, the composition of the music, but they should be. Like, that's a big part of that movie. Think about all those great sports movies over the course of the years that were driven home by movie scores. Think about the classics. Think about Gladiator. Think about Braveheart. Guys like Thomas Newman and Hans Zimmer, what they've done. I've seen those guys take good movies and make them fantastic just with their composition of music. You know, I've seen it happen time and time again. I've seen them take movies that were tough to watch and made them very good. So good composers have that effect. And I hope as movie fans, if you're listening, you notice that. And I'm not talking about just the obvious soundtracks like Jaws or The Exorcist. I'm talking about, something you might not necessarily notice. I mentioned Anchorman, but there's so many. I really enjoyed this conversation with Alex. We were talking, I want to say later at night. It was just such a pleasant conversation, such a good man. It's why I love podcasting. It's why I like being a podcaster. It's just, to me, I cherish that 45 minutes to an hour that we spoke, and it meant a lot to me, and as do all my guests, but really love talking to Alex. So before I let you go, you're going to hear a clip, as I mentioned, from Newsroom. Pay attention to Alex's music really driving home that Aaron Sorkin written scene in The Newsroom. Just a great scene. Alex's music really makes it go. It really gives it that drive to make it just beautiful television. And if you want to get a hold of me on Facebook, please feel free to like or join me on Facebook. It's Monday Morning Critic. You can like, and I post daily. Twitter is MDM Critic. My website is mmcpodcast.com. Drop me a note. Some of you have been doing that. Thank you. mondaymorningcritic@gmail.com. Instagram, Monday Morning Critic. And if you've liked what you've heard, please leave me a review at Apple Podcasts. It's Monday Morning Critic on iTunes. Unlike some of the podcasts in my category, I do not pay other people to leave reviews for me. I don't do a follow for follow, or I promise somebody a good review because they've given me. I don't do that. If you like the podcast, leave a review. If you think it's mediocre, you can also leave a review. That's great too. But without further ado, I've spoken too much. I bring to you composer Alex Wurman. This is episode 201. You are listening to Monday Morning Critic Podcast. Enjoy.
Ask me again.
I'm sorry.
Ask me your idiot question again.
What makes America the greatest country in the world?
You do. Hire her.
What is the rest of the message?
Screw it. Just feed him another 10 cookies. Welcome to Newsnight.
100 more death threats,
Yeah,
but we're pretty sure they're not serious.
not these 100, but after tonight, I expect the next 100 will be very serious.
What do you protect me for?
1,700 a week plus health and dental.
I wouldn't take a bullet for 1,700 a week.
Me neither, pal. So I learned how to duck.
Hey, it's me, Will. Listen, I swear I'm not saying this because I'm high. If the answer is no, then just do me a favor and don't call me back or bring it up or anything. But I have to tell you, after tonight, I really want to tell you that I've never stopped.
Alex Wurman is an award-winning composer whose work includes March of the Penguins, The Nines, Temple Grandin, Anchorman, Talladega Nights. Very eclectic, very talented, very diverse body of work. Alex, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much.
So psyched to have you on. I have to say, just looking at your life, you come from a family of a family that's deeply invested in music. And did you find that, and this is going to be such an obvious question, but how much did that push you to kind of into a career, into where you are today? Because there's other things as well, right? Because you've gotten to some prestigious institutions, you've worked hard in your own life, but the family part of it, how did that play into your life?
Well, that's a good question. It's an interesting question that I've been asked my whole life, and as I grow older, the question becomes more and more interesting to me. My father was a composer, arranger who grew up in Vienna, Austria. And my great-great-grandfather was a composer who was best friends with Johannes Brahms. My mother was the daughter of a painter from Italy, and she was raised in London. And she was working as a maid, housekeeper, when she was very young, 10 or 11 years old. And her payment was a violin that she had seen over the mantelpiece in a house. And instead of getting cash, that's how they paid her. And the two of those people coming together, they had 4 kids. I'm the youngest one. My brother's a cellist. Sister is a composer and a bass player, the first female bassist American to play in the Munich Philharmonic Orchestra.
Wow.
My other sister's a violin teacher. My mother's a violin teacher. My sister has a wonderful voice, So when I came around, I literally saw it like this is what the world is. I didn't think of it as an option to be anything besides a musician. It just, one of those things that never occurs to you. And the only choice I had to make was what kind of a musician would I be? Mm. And as I get older, I'm sort of trying to figure out the reason I tell the story about my parents coming from such different backgrounds. I'm trying to figure out what's been more influential in my life, the nature part or the nurture part. My mother was very much about educating anybody who wanted to play music, and my father, with the lineage that he had, was slightly elitist. And so it's an interesting question. I don't have the answer. I think they're constantly fluid.
So let me ask you to follow up kind of what you said, which was very insightful. Do you find, like, so say if growing up you said, you know what, music is not for me, would there have been a disappointment on your family's end where, you know, you didn't follow in the footsteps, or would it have been, you know what, Alex, you do what makes you happy and live a life that is fulfilling?
Well, my mother was a very kind and sweet lady who was not judgmental in any way. She's very intuitive. So I imagine she would have supported me. However, you know, that said, I mean, she didn't like me I used to just sit down at the piano and noodle all the time. And she tried to get me to stop noodling. So I don't know how she would have reacted. I think she did have some designs on me being a musician. My father, I don't know how he would have reacted, but I know that one part of it would have been dismay. He wouldn't have known what to do. I think he was equally as previously committed to music beyond his own ability to make any choices as I was. So, I mean, he literally would have had no idea what to do. Right. I don't think it would have been a supported thing. I've you know, spending a lot of time in Hollywood over the last 30 years that I've been here, I've seen a lot of people in that situation that have had parents that have had a very distinct path. And when they go on a different path, it creates this rift that lasts a long time. These very strong relationships. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I usually find, it's funny that you say that, Alex, because I usually find that when I talk either an actor or whomever, it's usually the opposite, right? It's usually if you go into the arts or acting, or people are like, you know, why couldn't you have been an electrician? Why couldn't you have gone a 9 to 5 job? It's usually the opposite. So you kind of had a unique, not a problem, but it's just worked out so it became great. Yeah.
Yeah. That is true.
So let me ask you, like, and I brought it up, you know, your academic and your training, you know, your experience. I think black and white. I wish I had an arts background. I could think musically. I could think in that way, but I can't. So how does, you know, who you are today? Is it just a combination of everything, or do you find that it was led mostly by family? Do you feel like schooling helped you a little bit along the way? Your experiences. I mean, I guess it's a potpourri of things, Alex. But when you look back, or even today, what do you kind of contribute to where you are? The reasons behind it. How do you rationalize it or break it down?
That's another wonderful question, Derek. I really enjoy talking with you. I think that the overall inarguable thing is that if you work hard at something will happen. You know, I mean, if you have zero talent and you work really, really hard, you're going to end up doing that thing. You know, if let's say you want to be in the music business and you just really want to make music and you spend 20 years trying to do it, I mean, you'll do it. You may still be pretty terrible, but you're still going to be making music, right? One way or the other, one kind of music, you know, and it may not be the talent that is the important thing. It could just be the love of it, you know, and when you have cobbled together just enough skill to do it, it's the love that people feel. That's really, really important. So I think in my case, you know, I think that's really what's ringing true. It's just been hard work. I've been dedicated to it for a very long time. And, you know, the COVID situation has changed what I'm doing with music drastically. And I'm accessing skills that I have sort of ignored over the years while doing film scores, because I'm not doing film scores right now. Nobody's making any movies right now. Anybody has anything they want me to score, I'll do it, as long as it's got some heart to it. But anyway, you know, in the meantime, I'm going back to my roots, and I'm realizing that there's been years and years and years of investment of my thought into it, and you know, I'm an expert at it now. And talent aside, that's what it is. I do think there is something physiological in musical ability that has to do with resonance in the brain. But it could just be that I was attuned to it from the very moment I was conceived. You know, there was music in the house before I was born. And, you know, so it's a very difficult question to answer thoroughly, but I think hard work and love is really all you need for just about anything.
No, it's a good answer. You know, Alex, you mentioned COVID, and, you know, I think many people are in your position that are in your industry, you know, finding a way to adapt and kind of do things differently. Is there a silver lining that's come from this for you, whether it's learning how to do technology in a way or learning how to break down music or develop music? Has there been, I mean, I hate asking this question. I mean, obviously it's a negative thing. I mean, COVID is just an awful thing, but has there been any type of silver lining for you as a musician and a composer?
Well, that's a very good question. And yes, it's a very hard question to ask. And with anybody who's compassionate at all knows that when there's suffering, if something is beneficial to someone else, that it's at a great cost. And that, I think, if you remain existing with a certain amount of respect and gratitude for whatever it is that you have, you can allow that silver lining to exist in its glory. Yes, there's been an incredible silver lining. I've had to really contemplate what I want to do in this time that I am not working on films. And, you know, the fear of the pandemic, the hoarding and the tension between people, the sort of bottom line thinking that we've all had to do in some weird way or another has caused me to think about how I want to live as an artist, you know, as a human, as an artist, as a contributor to society, however I can. And my best way is through music. And that in itself is a silver lining. Then to add on top of that, because I'm not working, I've had time to cultivate some of those skills that enable me to do that and to start living and existing in that way and thinking that way. So it is, you're right, it's a bittersweet thing, but I think a lot of people are having a certain reaction that they feel a bubbling from within. You know, it's a good feeling to access that, you know, to strip away the rat race normalcy of your life and to go back to what it is that's important, you know, as if you're saying, I've only got 6 months to live, you know, how am I going to live it?
No, that's a good way of saying that. And, you know, and you're a younger guy. Like, it's not like you have so much. It's unique because you have so much experience, yet you have such a long, you know, future ahead of you. You know, you're in a unique position, and I feel like, Alex, if you could just, whatever that silver lining is, whatever the skills you've kind of taken from this, I feel like once this does pass, I absolutely believe everyone, not just, you know, you and I talking now, I think we will all find a way to become better. And I hate to sound so cliched in saying that, but I believe that could be the case.
I just absolutely adore you for that idea, man. You know, I think that we're going to be divided until we're united. And, you know, it's the negative and the positive, and this bottom line thinking is bringing out the best and the worst in people. And I think, you know, that's a beautiful thing you've said.
Yeah. And you know, I have to ask you this question. I ask actors kind of the same version of this question. You know, like I told you off air, I love composers when they come on. I've had, you know, Chris Spellman, who's done The Lost City of Z, Dustin O'Halloran, who's done Lion, Martin Phipps, who's done The Crown. Do you find that your rapport with other composers, not you, Alex, but just generally speaking, is it to help each other? Because I find sometimes when I talk to actors, I feel like sometimes it could be a negative, you know, me versus you, you know, we're auditioning against each other. Do you find that collaboration is it healthy from a composer's point of view, Alex, especially in your life?
Well, that's one of the many things that's changed about me over the last couple of years. You know, I've been going through a divorce and a big life change. I had my heart broken for the first time. You know, like big things have happened to me in the last 6 or 7 years.
Right.
And I've come out much stronger and much happier because I'm not running from something that I was running from before. And that's a really exciting thing that you've said, that, I'm not that old. You know, I feel like I'm older than a lot of the young guys that are coming in, but it's true. I have plenty of time to access this new joy that I have in my life. So, when it comes to, by the way, Dustin O'Halloran's awesome. What a cool cat.
Yes.
And I made a new friend recently, before COVID, but not so long ago, Joseph Trapanese, who's like such a sweet, stand-up, extremely talented guy. And I think it might have changed, but, overall, over the years, I've noticed that, composers are we're a little bit solitary, but I almost want to say solitary or solemn, like sort of maybe a little heart-wrenching, kind of dour, typically.
Right. Right.
I do think that a lot of the greatest love songs have come directly from pain, for instance.
Right.
And some of the most dramatic pieces of music have come from fear and reverence and passion and desire and longing and all those really intense feelings. And so, when one composer is feeling that way, and he's confronted with another composer who's got that same depth, he doesn't always have the ability, the time to take on that. It's a big project.
Right.
So I think we just don't have a lot of patience for one another. But somehow in the recent years, it's become a little bit more, for me at least, a little more exciting to, maybe we're growing a little bit more, getting a little more professional and able to just go into the world in a slightly more normal way and meet people.
Yeah, and I always forget that, Alex. I always forget that, the nature of the job. You mentioned solitude. I think it's a good word because, you're in your own, you're doing your own thing. It's not like you're on set every day interacting with the guy with the boom mic and the cameraman and the director and the, showrunner or whatever. You're kind of doing your own thing. So I kind of forget that when I'm asking you that question. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Just tonight, I've been doing live streams on Facebook as many nights as I can,
right?
Just to provide a little bit of a calm, warm feeling for people, and I do it live so that people don't feel isolated as much as possible. And tonight I do it at 7:00, and at 6:57, I was sitting in front of the piano, like exhausted and thinking, I don't know. I was thinking about you. I was thinking about talk show hosts, like, how do you stay on a schedule? I don't have that skill.
Right. Right.
If I'm about to stand in front of a big orchestra, that's easy. The adrenaline really pushes me. But night after night to sit at the piano and play at 7:00, that can be difficult sometimes. It's not my thing. Usually I would show up 10 minutes late and do it the way I do it because I have that freedom.
Right. Right. And speaking of your process, and being, your work, does genre affect your process, Alex? In other words, not that, in the way that you would kind of come up with your ideas. Granted, I know a comedic score might be a bit different than something dramatic or in a documentary, but is your process affected by that? Because you do have a very diverse filmography, right? You've done documentaries and drama and comedy. But is the process all the same?
Oh, the process varies quite a bit. I've had to sort of widen the envelope on how you might expect me to answer that question. For the last 25 years or so, I've had people working for me. One or possibly two assistants would work with me, and they come to me somehow. Like I'll meet them at a gathering or maybe they'll send me an email that really lights me up a little. And these people are all young artists, eccentric, and productive enough to help me, but typically, you know, with a lot of character, and they're very different from one another. I allow their process to change my process. You know, I want them to be happy and doing their best work and getting as much out of it as they can. So if one person's a real early morning person, I'll say, okay, so come in at 8:30 and I'll move over this way and do it that way. You know, so I sometimes change my hours. I change which part of the process I let them do for me, whether it be transferring files or or editing the piano performances, or, you know. So when it comes to one genre or another, some of them would be that I'm responding more directly to a moment in a film. So a comedy like Anchorman, for instance, it's not that I watch the film a few times through and then I go off and go sailing for 3 days and let it enter the depths of my soul and come back with a melody. You know, that's not how I approached Anchorman. That one was very much like, you know, okay, Will is in a phone booth now and he just got hit in the face with a burrito, or he hit another guy in the face with a burrito. So, you know, what reference am I going to make? And I'll just come up with a quick, spontaneous sort of, you know, TV reference. And it's really fun. It's super fast. And the hard work there is that you have to try all the different ideas, you know, and flesh them out enough so you can respond to them and then pick your favorite one. But the hard work on a drama, I did a drama about a guy who grew up in South Boston. It's called What Doesn't Kill You. It's a really beautiful movie starring Mark Ruffalo and Ethan Hawke. And it was an autobiographical film. So the director of the film is who the lead character is in the story. He grew up in a life of crime. He did jail time, drugs, kids, and he had to pull himself out of it. So when I played the main theme of that movie, when I played it for the director, I was playing it for the guy who lived it. It was like a theme of his story. I wasn't going to just write a melody that, you know, like you could sort of riff that off. I had to really let that sink in for a bit. And so the hard work was not in front of the piano, you know, it was really in the soul of it. And then it just kind of emerged, and I had to find the right way to let it come out and not be interrupted with the piano or the technology or anything of that nature.
Yeah, really good movie. Mark Ruffalo's amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioned scores. You know, can a great score become lost? And I'm not saying this about What Doesn't Kill You, but just generally speaking, can a great score become lost in an unsuccessful movie? Like, have you in your life ever created a score where you were immensely proud of it, and the movie maybe didn't work out like it was supposed to, and you're like, geez, that, you know, it's kind of like just a baseball player going, you know, 3 for 4 with 2 home runs in a game where, you know, the team lost. Can you? And I know people aren't in it for, you know, the self, you know, look what I did. But is that a feeling you've ever had?
Well, that's a little bit fluid for me. I tried an experiment one time with a project that was given to me that I thought it wasn't a very good film, right? And there were some good qualities, but there were enough mistakes or mishandlings of certain things in the film that it kind of fell apart and it wasn't going to be effective. And I thought, I can glue this together with the right music. I can latch on to the right notion and really kind of save this movie. And that's not true. I don't think a really great score can save a movie. You can have really good music in a film, and it can go unseen. You can have a great movie that goes unseen, like What Doesn't Kill You. I've worked on several decent movies that have gone unseen, and that can be really frustrating. But I don't think that I've ever done. I mean, I've done some things that I think were highly effective, but the movie was impacting, and people just didn't see it. I don't know. Have I try to do, I think I learned this on my first movie when I looked back at it a few years later. It's a movie called LA Goddess, where, it opens up the first 20 seconds or so, beautiful shots of Los Angeles, nighttime vista shots, and then a hard cut to a woman with massive breasts in the shower. She's not, she's topless.
Right.
A movie called LA Goddess. I poured my heart and soul into that movie. It was the first movie I scored. And, that's nothing to be terribly proud of, except for the fact that I did my best. But when I look at that movie, there was one lady in that movie. She had a role where she was kind of the bombastic, sort of super short shorts and trailer trashy character. So she was undesirable but super sexy at the same time. And somehow I'll never forget her. She was really great. Like she worked really hard on that. And so what I learned from that is, whenever I'm doing a job, no matter how bad the movie is, somebody tried really hard. So I look for that contribution as my inspiration to do my best work on that movie. So I hope that I could say that every score I've done is good.
Right.
And not to be overshadowed by the lack of views that the movie's gotten.
No, that's well said. And you won an Emmy, for those listening, for Temple Grandin. Wonderful movie, wonderful music. Everything about it was really well done. Is there any type of, and again, I don't want to put this like, oh, you're in it for the awards, but is there any type of like, what? I'm proud of myself, goddammit. I did a good job there. I'm really, is there that moment of satisfaction for you? Because clearly, you're not done. You're doing great works, but is there a moment of you where you pause and you're like, I'm proud of myself for this?
Oh yeah. I feel proud a lot.
Good.
Temple Grandin was a really wild one. Mick Jackson is a great director, and he's an older guy, and he was on fire while he was making that show. And what his thing was he was pushing that everything should feel as alarming as it would feel if you were Temple Grandin. So the whole movie was played in the style that it would try to alarm you the way she would be alarmed by certain things, because she's autistic and oversensitive. And the studio got a little, they didn't quite believe him. They were giving him a little bit of a hard time. And I have to say, I was wondering too. So, he was pushing me as hard as he could. And it wasn't until I saw the film in the theater, finally done, with all the sound and, on a really big screen where it was jarring, that it really set in like, oh, wow, yeah, that was a really cool moment right there. So when I look back at that project, I'm proud of the fact that I was able to hang on, even though I was a tad bit lost in the process.
But that's, and it's good to see a product that's finished like that. And, your music very much, I have to say, Alex, reminds me of Thomas Newman. And Thomas Newman is my all-time favorite. I think the world of him. And there's a couple tie-ins as we go I'm gonna make with you and he. Just the one thing I cannot figure out, and I think I probably said this on a few other podcasts, how this man has gone 15 nominations without an Academy win. I want to, like, it's almost obnoxious, Alex.
Yeah.
I was just looking at a fraction of his work. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about Shawshank. I forgot about Road to Perdition. I forgot about, it's like, I know he's another guy that's not in it, but in the back of his mind, it's like his ability, his ability, I know his ability, the world knows his ability. I don't know. It's just, how do you let 15 go by without giving this man some kind of, I don't know. I'm venting, I suppose, but it's very perplexing to me, Alex.
Yeah, no, I can totally agree with that. Oh God, that's a really tough one. I mean, obviously the Academy Awards is a difficult situation because you've got potentially 5 spots from genius composers working on incredible movies, right? And part of what influences the decision is the topic of the day, in part.
Right.
People sometimes have to rally behind the film that is centered on the most important topic of that particular period of time. So it's probably bad luck. But I can't help but think that, one of the great qualities of Thomas's music is this feeling of being removed. Right? Like American Beauty, you remember the visual of that letter that's blowing around with the wind in that little micro tornado?
Absolutely. Yes.
And there's that feeling of, we're like a feather being taken over, and what's happening is happening around us, and it's not us creating that. And that feeling, I think, is one that Thomas has really captured multiple times with his music. Road to Perdition, just ridiculously incredible film and music, but somehow not that soaring like release of I am, it's more like screwed. You feel a little screwed in the
Right.
I wonder if that might have had something to do with it. Yeah. That it's not, I feel like sometimes I don't get enough attention from directors that are making their movies because I'm very modest. Like, I don't want to manipulate people's feelings in a way that they would ever catch on to. So I do my best to stay out of the way. And I think some of my most effective stuff it helps a lot, but goes completely unnoticed.
Right. No, yeah. And your body of work, we're about to get into it, is amazing. And just before we leave Thomas Newman, that part of our conversation, I mean, The Shawshank Redemption is considered by most, including me, the best movie of all time. His music drives it big time, and if you can't win it for Shawshank, I mean, I don't know what they're looking for, but
what did win that year?
I don't remember. I have it.
Nobody ever remembers.
No, I never remember. I mean, but and I feel like, what it could have been Forrest Gump, maybe.
Well, see, I mean, Forrest Gump is like, you can just totally pinpoint exactly what that is. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No. I'm glad you said that. I believe it was Forrest Gump if I had to guess. But
yeah, it might be right.
Yeah, so I mentioned something about your paths tying in here. Newsroom, by the way, your awesome outro in The Greater Fool, by the way, Alex, one of my favorite pieces of music.
You.
Yeah, you're absolute wizard behind the keyboard.
Awesome.
Yeah, so let me ask you, how does this work? I was trying to piece this together because I love The Newsroom. I absolutely love it. When people ask me, what's a good show I can watch? It's one of the first three out of my mouth. So Thomas does episode 1. You have an amazing rest of the season in 2012. Then they changed it in 2013 with Johnny Klimek, great artist, Run Lola Run, great composer. Then Jeff Beal. Why the turnover there? I don't get so I'm watching season 1. I am full, I just mentioned The Greater Fool. I am fully content. Musically, I am enjoying what you've done. I love it. Why make the changes the way they do? And if it's a question that's going to put you in a position where, it's awkward, I don't want to do that. But I just couldn't piece it together in my mind.
Well, so I can give you a very subtle reply based on two different perspectives. One of them is it was a hard season for me because when they asked me, would you be willing? And this was great. I got to go to Thomas's house and hang out with him a little bit and work with him. So they said, would you be willing to take some of his themes and incorporate them into the score? I thought, absolutely, that'll be great. I love his music, and that'll be fun. But what they didn't tell me is every episode is going to be temped with Thomas's score from every movie you've ever loved that he scored. So now for a TV show, I got a super fast turnaround, and I'm trying to recreate the sound because they're stuck on the temp score to recreate the sound of a major motion picture that had $1 million score budget. It was a nightmare. It was really, really hard for me.
Right.
I got it done, and I really did enjoy that show. And I did enjoy that, particularly that last cue. It felt really good to be working on that. I thought it was important and satisfying. But I guess the other half of my answer is, I consider myself a talented, professional, hardworking person. And the same of Johnny Klimek, and the same of Jeff Beal. And, so why then? What? It's not us. Maybe they couldn't find the voice. I don't know.
I found your music amazing, and if you go on YouTube, and I'm gonna end the interview with one of your pieces, but I feel like people love your music during. It's just, to me, and I don't want to berate this point, but I don't know. I thought you did a phenomenal job finding your way, and not only finding your way, but making your work excel.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like this scenario has presented itself before. I feel like Martin Phipps, who did the music for The Crown, took over for Hans Zimmer. So you guys were kind of in similar situations. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like you guys had to pick up the mantle from Legends and kind of like, okay, well, here you go. It's like, so it's kind of a difficult situation to be in, I feel like. And I feel like you both shined in the roles you did. So not to kiss your butt too much, but I thought you did really well. Yeah, for
Thank
sure.
You. Well, I know I didn't let the movie down. I think it was more that it was slightly stressful for everybody. Aaron was trying to get the stuff written, and we were all like chasing our tails a little bit. But I didn't let anybody down, and that didn't happen music-wise in season 2 or season 3. So I can't. The only suggestion I have is that there was a lack of rapport created between the producer and the composer that was able to last more than one season.
Yeah, when you watch a movie or a show on your own, Alex, can you enjoy it, or are you always getting lost in the music, whether it's as a professional analyzing it or just appreciating it? Is it different being a musician watching binge watching a show, even if you have time for that, or a movie? Is it a different perspective for you?
The last show that I binged watched that I just really loved the music was season 1 of, oh my God, I can't remember, Pablo Escobar. What's the name of the show?
Oh, Narcos.
Narcos.
Yeah.
So season 1 of Narcos was like, it was amazing.
Good call.
I also really loved season 1 of Ozark. I just watched recently season 1 of OA.
Okay.
And I really thought the music was cool. Like, so I think the answer to your question is, if the show is good and if the music is not self-conscious or self-centered, I can dig it, and it's fun. Even if I actually hear it and notice it. Like I how meditators, people that are very good at meditating, they can get into the zone pretty quick. And for people that are newer to it, it takes more time to calm themselves down.
Right.
I've gotten that way with music and film, or anything in film. I can see editing and cinematography and script and all that stuff. But so if I get taken out, I can get myself back in pretty quick now.
Right.
But if it's not good, I don't get taken out. I just turn it off.
Just a quick side note before my next question for you. Hans Zimmer won for The Lion King in the year Shawshank came out. So, I guess I can't argue, but I guess I have to argue that because I don't know. But
but see, totally different genres, right? Like,
yes, exactly. Like, that's such a good point. Like, that category was maybe the most loaded ever because you had Forrest Gump, great music, and how do you pick a winner? They're all winners.
Right, they are. That's the thing. They're all winners, and in a civic communal way, like, what do we need the most? And I think The Lion King was something we could all say we really wanted to celebrate that at that moment. So I think, generally speaking, people want to celebrate things that are slightly more positive.
Yeah, and I have to say, you've, for those listening, you've worked for Adam McKay twice, or worked with Adam McKay twice, Anchorman, Talladega Nights, and I'm sorry if this is a stupid question, but do you have any say in the vocal music used in those movies, or are you just responsible for just the scoring of itself?
Just the scoring. just the scoring.
So Adam would never, like a director would never approach you and say, "Hey, you know what, Alex? I know you got a great, musical background. What do you think about what song would you use in this scenario?" To me, I don't know. I would try to get feedback from as many people as I could, especially the person that's scoring my film.
Well, they had an incredibly awesome music supervisor on Anchorman by the name of Hal Wilner.
Okay.
Who, terribly lost. He died of COVID recently.
Awful.
But he was a great music supervisor who did a lot of work with Saturday Night Live back in the day, and that's how he met Adam. And they just had the hippest minds on song. Socially very cool people. Like composers are a bit nerdy. I'm not really that versed on the greatest song choices for cultural statements like that. Right. I can pick up on the more subtle instrumental stuff pretty well.
and one of your pieces that's so amazing is the Nines. Like that is just. I mean, I feel like there's such a not a following, but I go to YouTube and people are gushing over some of these tracks. I mean, a very underappreciated. So I asked you a question earlier. I'm not saying the Nines was it's a good movie, but I feel like the music was exceptional.
Thank you. It is something I'm proud of. That I think the things that are most interesting, that have the most resonance, that seems to have value, are the ones that have a flow to them, that come from someplace really deep down, and it comes out in the most as having been influenced by the most important elements, right? So the Nines, this is this incredible story, and it's very self-reflective by the director, and he wrote it. Great writer, John August, and that melody that I think people like the most from that film. It's interesting. He called me up one day. I hadn't even read the script. He just said, "Okay, so we're going to shoot this movie, and we need the main theme on a piano because Ryan Reynolds he's going to be witnessing this theme. I needed to shoot, right?" And it turns out they had it played on a Disclavier piano. So he described what he was looking for. He described the story, and he described the emotion and the feeling, what he was looking for. And because I think there was a lot of himself in this script, when he spoke those words to me, they just sang to me. And I got off the phone with him, and I just literally just played for about 45 seconds. And actually during my live streams lately, that's kind of what I've pride myself on doing, which is just letting myself it sort of comes out, right? So it came out, and that's what became that thing. And that's what people are digging from that score. And it even sort of throws me for a loop. How can that happen? Like how can something resonate deeply and connect to something really deep and important, and then just come out like that? Because I'm a jazz musician and I've got a lot of facility with the piano. You could take that lightly and say, he was just riffing, but it's definitely more than that. You could even take it lightly and say, okay, so he put himself in a mood and he got that mood, but it's more than that too. Right. It's bizarre. It's like, that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me so excited about making more, and allowing that resonance to happen. Cause I feel really lucky and grateful that I'm able to connect in that way. And I'm kind of, chomping at the bit to continue to do that. So that's a nice thing.
Yeah, and before I let you go, one of the funny things is, you mentioned John August being a great writer. I legitimately had great writer in parentheses because Big Fish, phenomenal, Titan AE. He's a very gifted filmmaker for sure.
Yeah.
My last thing to you is I was listening to, I think it was a track from the 90s. Maybe You're My Favorite. I don't remember what because I had a lot going in my head today from a lot of your filmography, but I was reading the comments, Alex, to a lot of to the song, and this is just a couple of what people were saying: gifted, not talented. What he does cannot be learned. Beautiful, reflective, moving. Another person put, "This makes me feel." I mean, they go on and on. I mean, Alex, if this is not affirmation of what you should be doing with the rest of your life, I don't know what the hell is.
Yeah, man. Well, you're so kind to say that stuff and to reflect that back to me. These are some tough times, and to be cherished is a beautiful feeling. And thank you for giving that to me.
His name is Alex Wurman. Alex, thank you for moving me all these years, and you're a good human being, and I wish you nothing but love and success in the future.
Absolutely, Derek. Thank you so much, man.
Alex, I stopped recording. Thanks for sticking with me. Sorry I kept you a little longer. I just love talking to you.
Oh, Derek, you're fantastic, man. Thank you so much.
I will send you a copy when it's done, and have a wonderful rest of the week and weekend.
Send me a picture of your kid.
I definitely will, Alex.
Okay, brother.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, man. Because I'm a jazz musician and I've got a lot of facility with the piano, you could take that lightly and say, he was just riffing, but it's definitely more than that. You could even take it lightly and say, okay, so he put himself in a mood and he got that mood, but it's more than that too. Right. It's bizarre. It's like that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me so excited about making more, and allowing that resonance to happen. Because I feel really lucky and grateful that I'm able to connect in that way, and I'm kind of chomping at the bit to continue to do that. So that's a nice thing.
Yeah, and before I let you go, one of the funny things is, you mentioned John August being a great writer. I legitimately had great writer in parentheses because Big Fish phenomenal, Titan AE. He's a very gifted filmmaker for sure.
Yeah.
My last thing to you is I was listening to, I think it was a track from the 90s. Maybe You're My Favorite. I don't remember what because I had a lot going in my head today from a lot of your filmography, but I was reading the comments, Alex, to a lot of to the song, and this is just a couple of what people were saying: gifted, not talented. What he does cannot be learned. Beautiful, reflective, moving. Another person put, "This makes me feel." I mean, they go on and on. I mean, Alex, if this is not affirmation of what you should be doing with the rest of your life, I don't know what the hell is.
Yeah, man. Well, you're so kind to say that stuff and to reflect that back to me. These are some tough times, and to be cherished is a beautiful feeling. And thank you for giving that to me.
His name is Alex Wurman. Alex, thank you for moving me all these years, and you're a good human being, and I wish you nothing but love and success in the future.
Absolutely, Derek. Thank you so much, man.